No. Hey, good morning, everyone. Sorry we started a bit late, but very happy that my friends could be here, and we're expecting more people to join in, say in about 5-10 minutes. Nonetheless, we'll be starting the session. So, most of you know me already. If not, my name is Yutan. I work for the International Solar Alliance, and today we have this beautiful opportunity to listen to all the Indigenous peoples here and to hear your stories about what just transition mean to you. So much has been said about just transition, not just in COP, but also outside, and it will be talked about beyond this COP. So as per the basic principle of just transition is to have human development at the core of it. So that's what we'll be touching upon today, and hopefully we'll be able to hear a lot of interesting stories from your end. So we'll be starting the session, and for that, I'll be handing over to my friends here from the Secretariat, Sudhanshu and Sunaina.
Well, good morning, everyone. Myself, Sudhanshu. I'm from International Solar Alliance Technical Division, which is Program and Project Implementation Cluster. So, if there is any query related to the technical side, more than happy to address it. Let me pass it on to Sunana.
Ah, Good morning, everyone. I'm Sunena, and I work with the legal unit in ISA. That said, I'm going to take off my legal hat today, and I'm just going to be here as a member of the Secretariat and to hear your views about just transition.
Sunana, you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I am Narba Deora. I am looking after Asian Pacific region at International Solar Alliance. And I hope it will be a very, very interesting discussion today. Just to understand, it's a very open and interactive session that we are looking forward.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shobita Bhatia from International Solar Alliance. I look after the communications and outreach.
Hi everyone, I'm Greshma. I'm from India. I'm the founder of EcoPeace Teen Cafe. So I'm here to learn more from indigenous people and how just transition is happening. Thank
Thank you, Grishma. I will request everyone who is participating in this session. It will be more informal. We love to hear from you, your perspectives. So, just wanted to have a introduction from your side, and then we can proceed further accordingly. Over to you, ma'am. Introduction.
Chaume Raume, Saruki. Buenos días, hermanas y hermanos. Mi nombre es Aileen. Vengo de un territorio indígena chiquitano de Santa Cruz, Bolivia. Estoy ahorita actualmente como cacique de género y juventud. Chapié. Gracias en mi idioma de pueblos indígenas.
Hola, buen día. Mi nombre es María Melgar. Yo también vengo de una nación de pueblos indígenas que es la nación guaraní de Bolivia.
Buenos días y agradecida por la invitación y por el desayuno. Mi nombre es Yami Mendoza Miro. Actualmente soy la presidenta de la Confederación Nacional de Mujeres Indígenas de Bolivia, ¿no? Que es la CNM, que aglutina a 34 nacionalidades de las 36 reconocidas en el marco constitucional, ¿no? Y ejercemos derechos colectivos que tenemos base territorial, ¿no? Son parte de también la organización. Y estamos tal vez acá por una curiosidad sobre la transición justa, ¿no? De estos temas importantes también. Gracias.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Bishkul. I'm Maya Tsutuhil from Guatemala, and I'm part of Cultural Survival. Cultural Survival is an indigenous-led organization headquartered in the United States, but with staff in 11 different countries. We recently also formed with other four organizations a coalition called the Surge Coalition, which stands for Securing Indigenous Rights in a Green Economy. And we've been doing work for probably about 3 years in the transition to a green economy and understanding the impact and supporting indigenous communities on transition minerals.
Oh, sorry, we just reached. My name is Irfan. I'm from South India. I work as a peace builder in Kashmir, and I'm a master's student from University for Peace. Just graduated in international law, and here I'm just visiting COP, and it was an honor to be a part of this program. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Maya Hobrick. I'm an undergraduate student at Brandeis University near Boston, Mass. in the United States, and I'm here with my environmental studies department.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Leon, and I'm also an undergraduate student at Brandeis University, also here as an observer as part of the environmental studies department at Brandeis.
Good morning. My name is Dave Kumar Sunwar. I represent Sunwar Indigenous community. I'm also a part of cultural survival as my friend Brian already told. I oversee ACS program. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexa Silva. I'm from Costa Rica in Latin America. I am here mostly with IOM, the International Organization for Migrations and Global Center for Climate Mobility, studying and advocating for the climate mobility, which is still a thing that has not been visibilized. And yeah, just that. Thank you. So grateful to be here.
It's pleasure to welcome you all. Has the vice presidency. Asian Pacific region, Bangladesh and Tuvalu is having the vice presidency. Latin America and Caribbean region, Venezuela and Dominica is having the vice presidency, and Europe and others, which also includes US, consist of Denmark and Sweden as a vice president. So you can see how we have graduated. And for for mobilizing, for installment or scaling of solar projects, you have to mobilize funds. We generally work on to three pillars. First is related to analytics and advocacy. It consists of providing the regulatory and policy framework. It consists of roadmaps, assessment work as per the need of the organization. Second pillar is to disseminate the knowledge and make the technicians, engineers, and other government level stakeholders understanding enough about how the project is being implemented. There's a need of training related facilities, webinars, workshops, virtual as well as physical trainings are being imparted to them. When both these two pillars are being satisfied, then we also provide them the assistance in terms of project implementation support. It consists of financial support also to the respective execution of the project, but with the objective that how the project can become a self-sustainable one. Like for example, if a country has given us 100 number of communities are needed to be solarized, or the power is need to be given to them, then we will do 4 or 5 pilot projects with the objective that how the project has been implemented, what are the knowledge, what are the training are need to be imparted to the technicians, so that their responsibility is to then scale it further and make it a self-sustainable one with a better business model. So this is what International Solar Alliance is doing, and giving the scaling the projects across the globe. So we have 8 programs in technical front and 1 program in financial front. You can see the likes of program like so scaling solar application for agriculture use, majorly consisting of off-grid small scale system like solar water pumping system, home lighting system, and off-grid systems. Then second is related to affordable financing at scale. You require to mobilize funds. So to reduce the cost of the projects, we have partner organizations, both philanthropic as well as support from the government, which can fund us to execute a project for the member country and then reduce the cost of the project accordingly. Then we have program number 3, 4, 5, and 6, which provides support in terms of scaling mini grids, rooftop, e-mobility, electric vehicles, solar parks. And then we have a very new programs which consist of solarizing of heating and cooling system, solar PV battery waste management, and for green hydrogen. In this, we are doing the knowledge dissemination. What are the new technologies which are prevalent out here? And then provide the assistance in terms of how the projects can be implemented. Like I said before, we are very much supported by government as well as other philanthropic funds firms from both the technical as well as commercial perspective. So you can see the likes of UNIDO, UNAIDS, Bloomberg, European Union, UNEP, Lighthouse, World Bank, etc., which are helping us in terms of scaling solar mini project, projects across the globe and making it sustainable enough. And once again, these all are the countries. The countries is increasing. We have aggregated 9.5 gigawatt in terms of solar intervention across the globe in different number of programs, and it is ever increasing depending upon the likes of the country where they want to execute the project and then providing them the assistance for the implementation. Here you can see how this is the example. Recently, we are in a process of concluding implementation of 5 off-grid small-scale projects across 27 least developed countries and small island developing states, out of which I believe right now it is 11. It has been further extended to 13. That out of this, 13 countries have already the project has been implemented, remaining are in the implementation stage. Here we are also providing the assistance of very small amount, not that much big, is $50,000, to spread the knowledge among the people about how these off-grid systems are being implemented. Off-grid means solar cold storage, solarization of healthcare facilities, solarization of schools, as well as solar water pumping system. And with that, in addition to that, we have got some good interventions, good initiatives that we are taking to develop the entrepreneurs, to develop the, with the capacity building initiative that we are having. We have got an initiative called Solar Startup Challenge. This we have done for Africa region. Soon we are coming up with other regions also, in which we are giving them the information related to that. A challenge has been conducted for budding entrepreneurs so that they can be very much excited enough in terms of implementation of solar projects, showcase them what type of projects has been implemented, and then support. We also support them some financial in terms of financial initiatives, so that they are their initiatives can be scaled within their country, as well as for making them and making a project sustainable enough, reduction of the cost. We have come up with the facility called solar facility, in which we are providing the assistance to the member countries in terms of payment guarantee, in terms of insurance, as well as project preparatory activity, so that the type of intervention related to solar they require, and with the impact that how it can be scaled for their own benefit, we are working on the same. So more happy if there is any question related to the same. Thank you. So I will now, let's have a very interactive session now. Have bored you like anything. So now I will pass it on to Sunana to proceed further.
Thank you, Sudhanshu. So I think we've done introductions of ourselves. We now know a little bit about you, and of course, you know about ISA as well. So what's interesting is that today we got the audience, or rather the participants we have, vary from various groups. We have students, we have organizations working for Indigenous people, and we actually do have Indigenous people as well. So we're very excited and delighted to have you all. So I think the first and the foremost question that actually comes out of the topic itself is, what are your views, or what is your perspective on just transition? And we just like to hear a little bit about that from you. Um, and
Anyone can give their perspective, anyone can participate.
yeah.
We would like to have a very interactive session. So what is your perspective, like Sunana has said, if anyone wants to give any suggestions or views in that?
I think Brian, because I know you talked about just transition, so
Maybe I can start and then you can. Yeah. So I think one of the most important things is that we as Indigenous peoples understand that there is a need uh, for a transition, right? Because the evidence is out there, and the PSD, even in the negotiations now, we know that we did not achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. And as Indigenous peoples, we also must note that we face different problems. First is the increased pressure on the lands of Indigenous peoples due to extraction of transition minerals. And this includes also for solar power technology. We know that there are key minerals like copper, cobalt, nickel that are necessary for the deployment of renewable energy technologies. But what's also important is that there was a study recently that came out in Nature that said that 54% of 5,000 mining projects are located on or near the lands of Indigenous peoples. And this is very important because Indigenous peoples are stewarding around 25% of the world's earth land, and this land contains 80% of the remaining biodiversity. So we have that increased pressure because we're stewarding these lands, but at the same time, there's increased pressure, and initiatives like this should have in mind that Indigenous peoples have specific rights, and that's the right to free, prior, and informed consent. And free, prior, and informed consent is both a substantive right, but it's also a process, a procedural right. So if we are to succeed in any initiative, any company should have an Indigenous peoples policy that's respectful of the right to free, prior, and informed consent. And it's very easy, right? So it's free, so free from coercion, prior, before any project starts, and informed with all of the information, including how it impacts their lives, their waters, and livelihoods also. So maybe that's just to kickstart the conversation. I know there will be more. So yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Please introduce yourselves.
Hola, buenos días. Soy Leslie Muñoz del pueblo Coya. Justa. Por otro lado, el derecho al consentimiento libre, previo e informado, como bien menciona Brian, pero también hay que añadir todos los derechos humanos contemplados en los organismos internacionales, porque son todos partes de los derechos que deben ser incluidos para los pueblos indígenas. También me gustaría mencionar que la invasión hacia los territorios de los pueblos indígenas es muy común o está pasando por esta transición. Entonces, hasta ahora la transición no está siendo justa. Entonces hay que empezar a construir una y que sea real para los pueblos indígenas. Eso quisiera agregar.
Thank you so much. I mean, we've heard about access to information being one of the key things, and maybe a more collaborative approach when we look at, looking at lands of indigenous peoples and maybe working on those lands. Is there any other perspective that you'd like to bring about, like maybe sorry. Oh, thank you. Any other perspectives like you feel like we may need to cover when we talk about just transition? Maybe.
Thank you. My colleagues Brian and Leslie already shared. I would like to add a little bit. Indigenous peoples are not against the just transition or green economy or the clean economy, whatever you say. As indigenous community, our communities are living in rural areas. They need electricity, they need solar power, and they need development, and they are not against the development. What they need is when any development initiative that undertakes in their land and territory, in their areas, they first have to be consulted. And they are the one who must be asked, and they are the one who have a right to give a consent whether that development should be undertaken in their territory or not. Because in the name of development, whether we talk about the, let's say as Brian said, mining for raw materials that is necessary for the green technologies, which especially mined in the indigenous people's land and territory without having consultation, without consulting with indigenous peoples, without giving them any informations in the language that they speak and understand, right? And neither they have been given any compensations. They have been displaced from their territories. So what indigenous community, what we basically feel is that sort of development is not sustainable development. If any sort of development is undertaken in their area, they have to be part of that development. Then only that development will be, sustainable. So in that take, this international solar alliances, whatever the project that you undertake, what sort of collaborations that you undertake when you undertake this sort of initiative in the indigenous peoples areas, or how you partner with them. Obviously, as you said, that you collaborate with the government institutions, and recently what has happened is it is the government by introducing the National Pride Project, the principle of eminent domain, what they call it. So that means when the government needs, when the state needs any sort of resources from the community for the benefit of larger community, they can take, even if that belongs to some private individuals. That is principle of eminent domain. So the government is now violating indigenous people's right, misusing, misappropriating the natural resources that indigenous peoples for long protecting, managing, right? Either we talk about the hydropower, let's say river, water, whatever, right? So in that take, how you actually maintain or fulfill in your initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dev. It is very important points that you have mentioned, and being onto the technical front, it is very much we need to understand about that. There is a need to have a discussion with the residents out there, before the project planning stage itself, so that one can understand about what are the things which are important things which are taken care of. This is what I'm going to lead it to the second question, that if I say that for renewable projects, you know what should be uh, I should say the interventions, the roles from the government side, from the recipient side, I should say the citizens from the particular domain should be, so that there should be a proper balance about it, and both of them should get benefited. So what should be the role related to energy transition, and how we can proceed further, so that there should not be any issue pertaining to that? If you can provide the answer to that.
If anybody wants to talk first, but if not, I can I can go. And maybe this is also related to the question you just asked, but also building on what my colleague was sharing. Is that there's also another important key point that we must not forget, and governments and companies have gotten it all wrong, because what they do is when they talk about free, prior, and informed consent, first of all, they think that they are the ones to decide what free, prior, and informed consent is. And that's not what it is. This right is pertaining, and it's to the indigenous community. And they are the ones to develop their own protocol. And that's why we at our coalition are supporting as much as we can to help communities and to give them tools to build their own protocols. Because these protocols outline and articulate what their priorities are. And maybe some of our priorities align with yours, right? And in many ways they do, because we are trying to do also our best to steward still these lands that contain this biodiversity. So these protocols should be built by the communities and not imposed on us. And on how we develop this partnership with solar projects, it depends on the priorities of the communities, right? The work should be for governments and companies to establish these policies in your companies that are respectful of these protocols and that provide also for a redress mechanism. Because we also have to talk about that the right to free, prior, and informed consent is one that indigenous peoples can give you the consent, but they can withdraw the consent at any time too. And they can give consent also and say a yes, but with certain conditions, right? So, and that's how, as indigenous peoples, and Dev was saying, we understand that there is a need for a transition. But for us to be able to have that conversation, it's important that we first have this respect for the rights of indigenous peoples, which is not happening currently. And we're still seeing a lot of situations of evictions of indigenous peoples to get the minerals, of evictions of indigenous peoples to establish wind parks, for example. And we could see also how this, and especially from my corner of the world, from Latin America, this is something that happens very often.
Bueno, yo creo que nos falta esa parte, ¿no? Desde el movimiento indígena más global, siempre para estos temas, hemos venido haciendo incidencia que también a los líderes que gobiernan ciertas naciones, cuando se implementan estas políticas, estas iniciativas, también tiene que ser parte de esa discusión. Tiene que haber ese gobierno tripartito de acuerdos, ¿no? Así como mencionó Brian, se tiene que trabajar estos protocolos y mecanismos adecuados a respetar justamente estos derechos colectivos que están constituidos, ¿no?, en diferentes gobiernos. Evidentemente hay algunos gobiernos que no adoptan ciertos convenios también que son reconocidos, ¿no?, donde están estipulados los derechos colectivos. Pero hay muchos gobiernos que sí reconocen esto. Entonces, por lo tanto, también que se vea que los líderes que ejercen la toma de decisiones de esa cierta nación tiene que ser informado, consultado, y a través de eso se tiene que consultar. Pero ese gobierno tiene que tener una consulta de buena fe, ¿no? Y tiene que haber esa voluntad política de hacerlo, lo que no existe hasta ahora. ¿no? Con todo lo que es la política extractiva, por ejemplo, que actualmente en la mayor parte de los territorios a nivel, por ejemplo, si vemos Latinoamérica, está siendo vulnerado todos los derechos de la vida, ¿no? No tanto de tal vez de nosotros, porque nosotros podemos caminar, podemos hablar y podemos reclamar, pero estamos hablando también los derechos vulnerados a la otra vida de los seres irracionales, digamos, que no se pueden mover, ¿no? Y que dependen mucho de nosotros. Entonces, por lo tanto, necesitamos hacer trabajar esos protocolos, pero tripartitos, ¿no? Siempre hemos venido mencionándolo y diciéndolo en diferentes instancias, cuando nos sentamos incluso con el Banco Mundial, digamos, ¿no? En la apertura los gobiernos se prestan plata, pero solamente entre estas dos dialogan, ¿no? Entonces nosotros desconocemos eso. Cuando ya viene la infraestructura, viene a vulnerar derechos, nosotros recién ahí reaccionamos y queremos conocer el proyecto en sí y no nos muestran. No nos muestran cuánto de inversión y cómo está, digamos, sus protocolos, sus acuerdos de empresa y Estado. No conocemos, ¿no? Entonces, por lo tanto, creo que esa parte nos falta trabajar. Y que tenemos que tener esa conciencia, ¿no? El sentido de buena fe, lo que debe primar en todos los seres humanos, ¿no? Entonces, creo que también recojo las palabras del otro compañero, los pueblos indígenas no estamos en contra del desarrollo, pero queremos que ese desarrollo sea adecuado a cada nación y a cada país también, de acuerdo a su forma de desarrollar, ¿no? Entonces, eso es lo que nosotros pedimos siempre. Y además, en este tema de la implementación de distintas infraestructuras, ya sea este tema, tienen que consultar específicamente a las mujeres y de acuerdo al idioma materno que tiene, ¿no? Porque somos las mujeres las impactadas y afectadas en cualquier tipo de vulneración de derechos, ¿no? Entonces, por mi parte eso puedo comentar.
Gracias. I'm gonna maybe speak in Spanish because this is related to what I want to tell. Voy a hablar en español porque creo que esto es sumamente importante. Creo que, continuando con lo que usted decía, creo que hablar en el idioma que es adecuado, en el idioma que se utiliza en cada uno de los pueblos indígenas, contemplando el español, por ejemplo, en esta reunión, pero también contemplando muchas otras lenguas indígenas que en muchos otros casos ni siquiera se toman en cuenta como oficiales por muchos países. Creo que eso es algo importante. Y creo que es algo importante no solo a la hora de conversar, ir un poco a los pueblos, pero además, o sea, a la hora de que se hacen acuerdos, a la hora de firmar cosas, no podemos firmar sin tener una idea de qué estamos firmando o tal vez traducido de una manera en la que no es la correcta. Entonces, bueno, creo que espacios como estos con traducción es sumamente importante y tomarlo en cuenta sobre todo porque ahora en la COP28 han pasado 28 COPs y ni siquiera hasta el momento, aunque se invitan a personas indígenas, no se tiene ningún tipo de traducción de este tipo, no se contempla su lengua y al final lo que estamos haciendo es visibilizando o el inglés o el español, que ambas lenguas vienen de colonizadores. Entonces creo que es algo importante trabajar con gobiernos locales, no solo con gobierno a nivel país. Según entiendo, sus estrategias están con muchas, como con muchos compañeros, digamos, a nivel local, a nivel... Entonces creo que esto es algo importante para seguir implementando. A veces las regulaciones que tienen a nivel país no son las mismas que se tienen a nivel local o a nivel de cada gobierno municipal, por ejemplo. Entonces creo que eso, y por supuesto que los gobiernos municipales tomen en cuenta las voces de las personas indígenas. Y creo que una justicia de este caso en el que se necesita transición es importante tomar en cuenta la justicia económica o las facilidades económicas que se nos pueden dar, porque tal vez hablar de paneles solares simplemente lo relacionamos con algo que es sumamente costoso, tal vez para diferentes pueblos es algo que es sumamente costoso y aunque queremos el desarrollo sostenible y aunque queremos este tipo de alternativas, pensar en esa grande inversión se vuelve muy difícil para pueblos autónomos, por ejemplo. Entonces yo creo que opciones de financiamiento son algo importante como para implementar también. Gracias.
Quería añadir también a la conversación, sumándome a todas las palabras que han dicho. Quería hablar de responsabilidad, de una responsabilidad empresarial. Cuando uno adquiere un producto, debe estar atento que ese producto no haya sido adquirido a través de vulneraciones de derechos. Y aquí es cuando viene la cadena de valor. Cuando nosotros adquirimos un producto litio, níquel, cobalto, cobre, de un lugar en donde se vulneraron los derechos de los pueblos indígenas, ahí es cuando ya estamos siendo cómplices de que esta transición no sea realmente justa. Entonces, me gustaría mencionar eso.
Thank you so much for sharing, what can be the right way of approaching this when we talk about, say, solar projects. Maybe if you would have any examples of when this was done right, when you feel like, maybe it could be I mean, it'll be nice if it's a solar project, but it could be any other project that you feel where the right things was done and how it was done. If there's any stories you'd like to share about that, we'd love to hear that from you.
¿Se me escucha así? Bueno, yo pienso que si pienso en energía solar, ejemplos cercanos no tengo en los que se hizo de la manera correcta. Y creo que eso dice mucho de cómo hemos ido avanzando. Si creo en otros ejemplos, digamos, o de cosas similares, yo creo que algo muy importante es consultar con todos los pueblos y tomar en cuenta que las poblaciones indígenas no son todas iguales y que no todos tienen los mismos tipos de visiones, de perspectivas. Entonces creo que eso es como uno de los aspectos en los que he sentido que proyectos similares han ido como por un buen camino, sin dejar de mencionar que no han sido en su totalidad perfectos. Entonces creo que eso.
So, this is a question that we get very often because companies and people ask, is there any good example where free, prior, and informed consent was adequately executed? And the answer is no. We don't have any good examples. And the reason why is because the principles are usually not respected. And so again, we go back to, I think that one of the things that should be imperative for any project, for solar projects included, is to include indigenous peoples in the crafting of the plans for those projects. And they mentioned transparency here, and all of it, and the sharing of benefits. But at the same time, and that's why the protocol for free, prior, and informed consent, respecting the protocols for free, prior, and informed consent, and the right to free, prior, and informed consent is so important, because these protocols outline what those priorities are and in which situations the communities want to engage. And that would be the basis of any project that you want to undertake. And at the same time, as you were saying, the supply chain, where we're getting these minerals, is so important too.
Maybe if I could, sorry, I didn't realize.
Yo solamente quiero decir que debe haber la corresponsabilidad, ¿no? De lo que realmente se debería de hacer, muy de acuerdo con Brian. Para iniciar, los ejemplos grandes pues no tenemos, ¿no? Pero sí tenemos ejemplos cuando iniciamos a realizar un proyecto desde la comunidad, tienes la corresponsabilidad, ¿no? Entonces también tienes la información de qué quieres hacer, ¿no? Cómo querés desarrollar, ¿no? Entonces todos participan, todos acordamos y todos tenemos la corresponsabilidad, tanto el financiero, el que va a implementar y qué es lo que nosotros vamos a hacer, ¿no? Creo que eso nos está faltando. Cuando hacemos grandes proyectos que tienen que ver con Estado, es por eso que exigimos la participación desde un inicio, ¿no? Para hacer esa consulta primero, de verdad, una consulta previa, antes, libre e informada, ¿no? Y no así, y de buena fe. Y no así como hasta ahora, que lo hacen, lo diseñan entre ellos, llega el proyecto ya para implementar y nosotros recién ahí sabemos que está todo diseñado cuando hablamos de concesiones mineras y cuando hablamos de las petroleras, ¿no? Igual ya están cuadriculados nuestros territorios, ¿no? Y reaccionamos nosotros recién a querer exigir y planificar el cumplimiento de este consentimiento libre previo informado. Y no prospera, porque muchos gobiernos también tienen, aparte de tener la Carta Magna bonita, sacan otras normativas para decir que nosotros, como pueblos indígenas, no decidimos sobre ese espacio, termina decidiendo el Estado. ¿Por qué? Porque el Estado tiene acuerdos con la empresa, ¿no? Entonces eso es lo que sucede hasta ahora. Así que yo creo que para entendernos y respetarnos desde el sentido de buena fe tenemos que empezar a diseñar desde un inicio y nosotros ser parte de esa iniciativa y también entender nuestra corresponsabilidad que tenemos que hacer, ¿no? Así como mencionó también la compañera, ¿no? Creo que eso nos falta realizar.
Um,
¿En francés, inglés o español? Okay, okay. English, maybe. My name is David. I'm from France, from a peace organization. And my friend is from Morocco, and he just arrived with a solar bike from Morocco. So he has crossed the desert. And so he's a mechanical engineer from Africa. And if you want, he can help you to design what you want, so that you can secure to you micro-active mobility for women, handicapped people, and indigenous people, the way you want to do it. And me, I'm doing a world tour on a solar bike, 5 years. And me, I'm an electrical engineer. So we do I do open source classes, workshop, how to convert your bike in e-bike, so you can have access to food, access to your shop, access to work, access to the hospital and justice. So please, I don't want to take more of your time. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So if I could just, get back to the discussion and maybe ask you a very basic question, but seems like it's something we are not very we're not very doing it right. I mean, when I say we, I mean people who don't understand what is it for indigenous communities and how they'd like to be interacted with. So how can we respect your rights? Like, what are the basic things, say, as a layman, I should be doing to ensure that I am not disrespecting you unintentionally or inadvertently? Maybe I know we've talked about it, and there have been certain things that everybody has mentioned of what we can do, but maybe just to bring it all together in one question, if anybody would like to start.
And in addition to this, one more thing. What will be the role of international organizations that you are expecting to, this particular rights can be honored and a holistic approach can be obtained? Any views on this? Sure. More than happy.
Hi everyone, I'm Greshma, and as I mentioned, I'm the founder of EcoPeace Teen Cafe. So what we are doing is we are hosting online cafe programs, and we invite people to share their experience with the teenagers, so they learn and they grow with new idea of sustainability. So we tried with indigenous people, so that comes to your answer to your question. So when I designed the program, I thought there is a large communication gap between indigenous people and outsiders. So how to build that gap. And we all know indigenous people uh, have this wisdom, and they know the solutions to the environment crisis, they know how to deal with things, but we don't know. So how to learn from them. So that's why we host indigenous programs, and we ask the students to go out and learn from these indigenous communities, and learn or do a project with them to know, like, from your local community and tribal communities, how they manage things. So that help these teenagers and students to turn their vision. So earlier they have like lots of judgments and or prejudgments or like stereotypes about the behavior, or like we help them to build the bridge between the indigenous community. So when we talk about the just transitions, I think like we need to work with the indigenous communities, like also like international organizations. There should be like a separate department or initiatives to know like how can we go out and reach out to them. Each indigenous community have their own traditions. Some like to be like closed groups, they don't want to interact with us, so that also kind of taken like how they needs and what they need. So some of our professors at the University for Peace, during one of our interaction, I was mentioning them that, okay, indigenous communities, they don't get their best because like our assumption of education, they get different education. So one of our professors were asking me who would define the term best. So how can we determine which is best and which is not? So we all have this colonial ideology. So these go out and research, and then we can know that how much wisdom they have. So it not be the certificate, but the wisdom they hold. So this has to be communicated with the entire world, that the value of wisdom they are having, and we have to communicate this with the coming generation, because when we talk about the fossil fuels, we are developing generations of decision makers and CEOs. So we need to communicate how to take the decisions and how these decisions are affecting the generations or the coming generations and coming people. So yeah, so we need building bridges to fill the gaps and need more communications. Thank you.
As to answer your question, what are the roles of the international communities, and also as a layman, when going to the indigenous community, what you have to undertake? The term is, what I say is intention. If international communities or companies' intention is for doing good for the community, as Brian time and again said, that the free, prior, and informed consent. If you simply understand this process, then you will be doing larger good for the community. And we are saying about the indigenous peoples are the right holders. We talk about why we are saying not the stakeholders but the right holders. There are the international laws. ILO Convention number 169, UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. You are working with the World Bank. World Bank has a policy standard 4.0, I guess. So all these rights, all these convention, declaration, this indigenous related policy clearly outlines how you can approach to the community and how you are supposed to undertake that initiative. If you just go through and follow that process, that is clear. For instance, what it said, let me answer. The free, prior, and informed consent takes all the process. I mean, that is the core issue. That means free, without, I mean, if you have intention to do good for the community, and then staying in the city, thinking about the community living in the ground, and you think that, okay, the solar panel will be best for that community, right? If you are thinking and making decision here and going to the community with solar panel, that may be good or bad, right? Staying here, you cannot decide. As sister said now, that it is the first thing that you have to go to the community and ask whether they need the that solar system or not. Perhaps the communities have long been doing, or maybe they have been applying the alternative sources for having the energy as such, or instead of solar, maybe they are looking for other systems too, right? So first thing is to go to the community, and then also have a kind of consultation with them, right? And then in good faith, actually, in good faith. And later on, that is free prior. So if you have other plans to support to the community, right, freely without any coercion, you have a consultation with prior to, if you are going to launch the solar panel there, maybe giving them brief explanation of what the solar panel is, what is the benefits, what are the what do you call the benefits, and also
Fact it is going to create.
pardon? No, what is the benefit and what are the impact? What are the impact? And if there are impact, how you can going to how you are going to address them, right? In that, all these information you have to give them in the language that they speak and understand. So all the information which are available one in English may not make any sense. And finally, then if you consent, you have to take the consent. So if you follow this process, that actually will be good even for the person or company who are not aware about the indigenous peoples, right? That is what
Thank you. And maybe if I can just build on that, and maybe I'll address, because I know that part of this dialogue is you're looking for answers, right, on how we do this. And I guess to the first part of your question is there is no silver bullet approach to this issue. Indigenous peoples are not a monolith. We have different views and about each one of these issues. Some communities may want to engage with you. Some may not want to engage with you at all. And that's why the right to free, prior, and informed consent safeguards. It flows from that right to self-determination of indigenous peoples. And that's the first one. And then the second one is, so then how do we make sure that we're respectful of the rights of indigenous peoples? And you don't need to answer this, but I think the first question you need to ask is, do we have an indigenous peoples policy? Do we have an indigenous peoples policy that addresses this issue? And that not only addresses the issue on how we engage, and is it respectful of free, prior, and informed consent, but is it also, does it also adopt all of the other? We also have the OECD guidelines, for example, and the principles on business and human rights. And so, and to the question of how do we include divisions of indigenous peoples, and this is another question there's no need to answer, but I think it's important to ask yourself is, do we have indigenous peoples on our governance structures? Are indigenous peoples in your boards? Are indigenous peoples making decisions? Because that's the other thing. They always see us as stakeholders, but we also are rights holders. And we can make decisions for ourselves. So if you want the indigenous vision in this process, is include indigenous peoples in your boards. And that's how we achieve true change.
Thank you very much for the intervention. So, keeping the paucity of the time into consideration, now this, I believe, closing remarks from now will be very good, sir. Thank you.
I think it's a great privilege and honor actually to be with you all today, and coming from diverse community. It's a very, very interactive and very fruitful discussion. I think we have had because this is a very open. Just we wanted to understand more from each other perspective, and the perspective laid out is very well drawn. And then I hope that this will be a good learning for us also to understand and to take forward when we start working, particularly when we wanted to connect the last mile connectivity. That is also, we have our vision that actually, even if we just highlight what we have, is that every home, no matter how far, will have light at home. And then if we have to provide that light, even in the last mile connectivity, then we have to have that. And it has to reach every home. And therefore, I think today's discussion, I feel very, very happy, that glad that we have this session. And again, thank you once again for coming here with us, and even our participants who are even on live, who are viewing it. I would like to extend um, with gratitude and appreciation, a thank you from the International Solar Alliance on behalf of my colleagues here. Very well taken. And then once again, thank you very much, and wish you a very, I think, a pleasant stay today, or most probably when you go back, and wish you a very safe journey back home. Thank you so much.
Uh, Thank you so much. We have a small spread, just some coffee and some